Good morning. We've been reading Candide, of course, over the last couple of weeks, and now I'm just going to try to explain a little bit about what's going on in this novel. Most of it you're going to get or understand just reading it, but there's some background information here, background events that are going on that are probably good for you to understand, and will certainly enhance your appreciation of the novel. I think as we keep going through it. So, first of all, we're going to look at those first couple of chapters and what's going on in those first couple of chapters, why you have some of these curious names and historical events that you're wondering, are these real events or are they not? What's going on here? So, just a little bit of some background information. So, I'm going to share the screen with you here. Then there's going to be some questions over this whole presentation when we're done, too, for you to work on. So I make sure that you understand what's pretty much what's going on in the story and why Voltaire wrote this Candide in the first place. So I'm going to share this with you here. Okay, so Candide, starting off here, Candide is a satire that attacks the core of optimism and God-led purpose in all events. And you wonder why would Voltaire come to a conclusion like that? Okay, we'll take a look. So again, satire is used in many works of literature to show foolishness or vice in humans, organizations, or even governments. It uses sarcasm, ridicule, or irony. For example, satire is often used to achieve political or social change or to prevent it. So the big event behind Candide was November 1st, 1755, the Lisbon earthquake. Somewhere around 50,000, maybe 30 and 50,000 people are on their way to church, right? On All Saints Day, November 1st, 1755. So these are good people, right? I mean, these are good people. At least that's what we would want us to think. In any case, somewhere between 30 and 50,000 people died in the Lisbon earthquake in 1755 on their way to church on All Saints Day. This really put Voltaire into overdrive, and he says, okay, I've had enough of optimistic ideas and optimistic philosophy, and we're going to figure out what's going on here. So he writes Candide to prove a point, and that's the point that we're going to look at here. So he goes on. I'm just going to review a little bit of the first chapters, and as I do, I'm going to make some comments. So this is what the horrific earthquake of 1755 in Lisbon looked like. You see here, there was a massive tsunami, 60 feet high, that hit the city of Lisbon right after the earthquake and actually went all the way down the coast into Africa and went clear across to the Caribbean. Even Martinique and Guadeloupe, the French islands, had these massive waves that just wiped out all kinds of little houses on the beaches and that weren't up in the high ground. So it was a disastrous earthquake, both in the old world and the new world, as they say. So the question then, how can one say that the death of innocent people has meaning? That's Voltaire's big question. That kind of question plagued Voltaire, leading him to the conclusion that we do not live in the best of all possible worlds. Voltaire mocks this belief through a pedantic expert in metaphysical theological cosmology. Okay, that's this theory that Pangloss has, which emulates Leibniz. Leibniz was a German philosopher. Here he is. He's a German philosopher that believed that all things work together for good in the best of all possible worlds, right? And that you can't really do better than this world. And Pangloss is the mouthpiece of Leibniz. And this is the person that Voltaire is criticizing and attacking all throughout Candide, because he can't make sense out of a world like this where we can see these horrible disasters happening. He can't make sense out of how you can say that's a good thing or that somehow it leads to other good events and historical ideas. It just doesn't wash for him. So he's not happy about it. And he comes out in the first chapter there. You've probably heard of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, hey, it's not God's fault that all those people died. It's the people's fault. They're the ones who built the city of Lisbon, Portugal, right on a fault line, and it's their fault. They're the ones who built the city there. So that's why you had the earthquake. They all died. That's not God's problem. That's humanity's fault. And so then you get into something called moral evil and physical evil. We're going to look at that later. But all this is the background information, the backdrop to Candide as you're starting to read through it. So looking on, just a quick little overview. So the main character, Candide, right, which means a fair-minded person, candid view of the world. He's kind of innocent, right? He grows up in this castle called Tondre-ton-Tronc. And you look at that name and you think, now where might that be? Well, that's obviously going to be in Germany, right? So it starts off in Germany. That's where Leibniz is from, and the author of Philosophical Optimism. So he starts right away. He starts criticizing Pangloss, of course, and Pangloss has all this wonderful logic that you can tell everything's cause and effect. So you can say, see, here's this beautiful tree. Therefore, something had to put that tree there. It just doesn't happen by itself. He says, look we have noses, therefore we wear glasses, right? Our noses were made so we could wear glasses. This is the kind of logic Pangloss uses. Of course, it's satire. And Voltaire is trying to show how dumb, stupid Pangloss really is, because that's a pretty poor logic. So cause and effect. In any case, and then he ends up in the army. Of course, Voltaire was very much a pacifist, and that's partly because he lived in England for a while, and he became I don't know if he actually became a Quaker, but he went to Quaker meetings regularly, and the Quakers were pacifist. So they basically have turn the other cheek. Somebody smacks you on the cheek, turn the other cheek, right? You don't fight back. That's not the way. And I need to look at historically, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., the way of pacifism is the best way. And this is what Voltaire was proposing. And also then you see too, by talking about war and by glorifying war, and all the, the beautiful silver banners and everything, and the guys are beating on their drums and the golden trumpets are blaring, and then boom, 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 and 1,000 people are dead in the first minute, their heads all blown off. And Voltaire says, see, that's what war really is. And he says, and then he goes on to say, he's attacking Leibniz again. How can you say this is the best of all possible worlds when that kind of thing happens right under your nose? And that's why the satire is really thick there, and the sarcasm both. So you have these Avars and Bulgarians that are fighting, and Candide gets in the middle of it. And then Candide makes his way to Holland, and he's in a bad way, and the first man he sees is preaching on a street corner. He happens to be a Calvinist preacher, and who has a kind of he's not showing a lot of brotherly love, right? Because Candide he needs food, he's dying of hunger, and the Calvinist preacher doesn't even pay attention. Then the Calvinist preacher's wife dumps garbage on Candide's head as a way of telling him to get out of there. So this is not very hospitable behavior, right? Part of the whole Christian teaching is hospitality. You have to show hospitality even to your enemies. I mean, this is fundamental. But so oftentimes in the church, so you do see hypocrisy, and Voltaire decides to use a Calvinist as the sample of hypocrisy. That's probably because he saw Calvinism can be pretty strict and rigorous, and they were even preaching at the time that the Pope was the Antichrist. Of course, I think that's one reason why Voltaire attacks the Calvinists, and that's right. In any case, so some of their theology was a bit harsh, so he attacks the Calvinists. We had Calvinism in this country, we still do, but in a very, very early form. Jonathan Edwards, right? He preached this phenomenal sermon, "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God," right? Where people are compared to a little spider dangling over the pit of hell, and all it takes is that little wire to be broke, and you fall into hell. And course, you have the other opposite. You have, right here in Michigan, right, we have Mars Hill and we have Love Wins. So you have these two very different views of Christianity, one pretty severe, and the other one, well, basically it's all just really good and love wins. And, frankly, I can see both sides of it, and I think there's truth in both of them. But in any case, Voltaire is attacking the Calvinists at this point, and who does he end up liking? Who ends up taking care of them? Who shows them true Christian charity, right? Hospitality. It's this character, James, or Jacques in French, James the Anabaptist. And you think, what is an Anabaptist? Anna means against. So these people are against baptism? Well, yes and no. It actually means a group of people that do not believe in infant baptism. They believe in baptizing adults, but not infants. And the Anabaptists were pacifists. That's why Jack the Anabaptist, of course, is the hero who takes care of Candide and Pangloss both. Pangloss, who is suffering from syphilis at this point, and one of his eyes fell out, and his ear is falling off, and his teeth are falling out, and he's having a pretty rough time of it. But in any case, right, Jack the Anabaptist takes them in and treats them very well, and they get their health back. And of course, later on, then you see, then he talks too about, he's referring to the disease that Pangloss got, syphilis, and that was thought to have come back from the New World. It's just a side thing, but it comes out in Candide. He says, he claims it had to happen through the disease. The disease came from a man who knew Christopher Columbus, and they would not enjoy chocolate if not for the disease. So basically what he's saying there, the fact that Europeans went to the New World, they discovered chocolate, because chocolate is native, right, to Central America in particular. Like the Aztecs and the Mayas were drinking chocolate, thousands of years ago. In any case, so he goes off, he gets chocolate in the New World, but they also brought back syphilis. Supposedly, the Native Americans of South America and Central America had syphilis, but that might just be a legend that's not proven. It's not a proven thing, but some recent history actually looks like it might have been true, but who knows? In any case, Voltaire uses this as one more example of satire to get our attention and to make us think about this best of all possible worlds we live in. That is kind of harsh and rough. In any case, then they arrive in Lisbon. And just as they arrive in Lisbon, the earthquake is actually happening and going on, and the city's burning. And of course, they've picked up this crazy guy along the way too. And he goes in and he pillages and carries on. And then he comes back, and he's working with Jack the Anabaptist and Candide and Pangloss. They get on a ship. Jack the Anabaptist actually helps this terrible sailor guy, get on the ship, and in the process drowns himself. So that's what Voltaire's way of saying, see, bad things happen to good people all the time, and it's like the bad people survive and the good people are drowned. So that's another example of the best of all possible worlds. Not, right? In any case, so it's satire and sarcasm as thick as you can go here. Now we're going to look at another perspective real fast, just to give you a little more view on this. This is, okay, so I'm going to stop the share and go over to a PowerPoint here. Okay, so